We are joined by our Senior Advisor for Foreign Policy and National Security, Rick Grenell, to talk about a host of issues. Rick, right off the bat, I want to talk about China and tie in both the Olympics, but something that was really outrageous that occurred in Prague. The Marriott Hotel in Prague refused to host a Uyghur Muslim conference, citing political neutrality. So a Marriott in Prague and the Marriott company is so worried about China, I guess, kicking them out of the Chinese market, that they would not allow a group that is being systematically executed and exterminated. It is genocide in China of these Uyghurs from hosting a conference, not in China at a Marriott, but at a Marriott in Prague. Ultimately, they were able to find another hotel.
Yeah, but they shouldn't have had to do that.
To me, Rick, it that right there is the example of Chinese power.
But it does show their power because the Uyghurs are terribly persecuted. It's known around the globe that this is a problem. The Chinese government also has been very clear in not responding to pressure. And the fact is that this wasn't even, as you said, Jordan, in China. This was in Prague.
And the Marriott cited political neutrality.
Well, how is it neutral?
How many Marriotts have you been to with political events in the U.S.? I mean, that's definitely not their policy here.
No,
I wouldn't think it was their policy.
And Democrats, they
kind of bizarre that it's their policy in Prague over some political activity in China. But Rick, to me, let me just go back to you. That's serious power when U.S. companies are so afraid of doing anything that could upset China that they will not allow this group that's being persecuted to hold a conference halfway across the world.
Look, it's happening in Europe, and I wonder if it would be able to happen here in the United States. I'm all for companies getting to choose who comes and who doesn't come, but I think that people need to realize that there are consequences to Marriott deciding that they want to stay politically neutral. I haven't seen Marriott stay politically neutral on the cancel culture, for instance, in the United States. Certainly, there are groups that they don't want at their properties that are affiliated with Donald Trump, and we've seen some of those examples. But I think you got to live and die by your choices. And if Marriott decides that they don't want to take a harsh stance against China, they might have some NBA players that will come and visit their properties. But I think they're going to find a lot of other Americans and Europeans are going to say, that's not what I value, and I don't want to stay there. We can vote with our pocketbook.
You know, one of the conference organizers for the Uyghurs here said that they were, stunned by the response of the Marriott Corporation, and which is stunning. Actually, and we've all stayed at Marriott's. I mean, it's not like that we haven't stayed at Marriott's, and the Marriott Corporation and the Marriott family should understand religious freedom because it was a company that's leadership is Mormon.
Yeah.
The Church of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
And that's always been, religious freedom's always been a big issue for the Mormons. Now you've got a group that's being systematically having their lives ended. They are literally placed in concentration camps. And as you all know, I do not use that term lightly because I had family that died in concentration camps. And an American corporation buckles to China. Rick?
Look, this is the growing power of China, especially in Europe. And I think what we have to be able to do is recognize and articulate that the Chinese system is not a free system. Let's be really honest. I mean, they deny systematically access to the internet. They have human rights abuses. And we have a whole bunch of American companies who go and open up markets in China, collect a lot of money, but they don't take a stand like they do in America. And I think that they have to be able to live and die by this sword. If you're going to work inside China, if you're going to have a company that's based in China, the Chinese Communist Party requires you to have a Chinese partner. And that partner is obligated to turn over information, activities, all of that to the Chinese Communist Party. That's just a fact. You don't get to do work in China and pretend like you're just there to do business and push capitalism, because your Chinese partners beholden to the Communist Party of China.
I'd like to go to. Do you have any follow up on China, I was going to go to Iran because this is another one. Go ahead.
The final question I had on China, Rick, was that we know that the Olympics is going to take place, Winter Olympics there. I know there's been calls for the U.S. not to participate. There's been calls maybe for U.S. delegates not to attend, but to still let our athletes who have trained attend. But again, to me, it's like the pre-event, this Olympics, to a real potential new Chinese aggression. It's like they're waiting to take action in Taiwan until after they can show the world and put on their propaganda campaign.
Look, we've been talking about the Olympics now for 18 months, and I think that you have to make a quick decision and let our athletes know that we're boycotting if that's the policy that we're going to push. I believe now it's a little too late. Our athletes have been training, and it wouldn't be fair to deny the athletes that venue. I will say, though, there are things that we can do. How about a corporate ban? We could bar U.S. companies from giving any money to the Olympics and supporting them and squeezing them where possible.
No, I think that's great. I want to go to Iran. So here we go. We know the Biden administration is trying to get cozy with Iran again. We've been talking about that with you for months here. Now we've got a report, not a report. The Justice Department has indicted 2 Iranian nationals for, attempted interference in the 2020 election that includes influencing alleged Republican lawmakers, Democratic voters, American news outlets. The indictment was unsealed on Thursday. The state Treasury Department's now imposing new sanctions on 6 Iranian people and 1 Iranian entity. These were aggressive attempts. According to the indictment, the Iranian conspirators sought to compromise 11 state voter registration and voter information websites in September and in October of 2020 and say successfully exploited computers in 1 unnamed state. Now, no special counsels on all of this, but they did indict him. Good for them. But this all comes while the Biden administration is begging at the table to get a deal with Iran.
Look, this is the hypocrisy of Washington, D.C., because what we heard during the Russia collusion hoax was a blanket punishment of Russia, no doing business because of the misinformation and propaganda campaigns that they were pushing. Now we see an aggressive Iranian regime activity, and there's all but silence from the implications of what that means for our policy. If we're going to be consistent, then we should shut down any negotiations on the nuclear deal to punish the Iranian regime for their manipulation of the American election. Yeah. We need to be consistent here. And the problem is that Washington, D.C. has only one standard, and it's a double standard.
But here's the 2 men were charged, Rick, and we only got 2 minutes here, accused of obtaining confidential voter information from at least one state's election website, getting data on more than 100,000 voters. The state was not identified in the indictment, but 100,000 voters' information was compromised by the Iranians while the Biden administration is sitting there trying to have negotiations with them.
Look, this is not going to go over well in Europe if we pull the plug, but I believe that there should be consequences that are applied equally when we find that individuals are manipulating or trying to manipulate our elections. Clearly, this is the case, and the silence is deafening from Washington, D.C. We need to be able to have State Department types, John Kerry, Anthony Blinken, and all of the others who are trying to push negotiations with Iran to look at these issues and to be able to say there is a reaction from Americans because of your activities trying to influence our election. Let's be fair and let's apply the standard across the board.
Rick, it's always great to have you on the broadcast. We appreciate your insight, your input.